everyone, this is Alicia, Liz, and Ann, and we are Servant Decoded, back for the fourth and final season of Servant on Apple TV+. So thank you for joining us. Hey guys, how are you doing?
I'm not crying.
You're not crying. Not yet.
Right.
Soon, I'm sure.
Probably. Always. It's always something.
Well, we are super excited to dive back into Servant. It's bittersweet, though, with it being the final season, but super exciting to get to that point. So everything, it's, I don't know, when a show ends, I'm always excited for those final moments, but a little sad knowing that, it's the last.
Not too much else after, yeah.
So, but we're excited. We're going to structure everything similar to how we did in season 3. So we'll talk about the title, and we'll do a recap and breakdown, and give a Julian line of the week usually, although this week he didn't really say much, but in the future, and wrap up. And then we're going to try and drop some smaller videos in between our breakdown, our deep dives this season, so look for those as well. If you haven't subscribed already and you enjoy our discussions, please do subscribe, and that way we can keep getting you the content, and when we're posting stuff. So all right, let's give it a go. I'm going to toss it over to Liz, and she's going to start breaking down the title for us, Pigeon.
So not much to it besides the pigeons coming and getting rid of the cult threat. But I did some research on, remember the first episode of last season was Donkey. Right. And we looked up the story of Balaam and his ass. And funnily enough, related to that, is the story of Moab, because Balaam on his donkey is on his way to the land of Moab, and God doesn't want him to do that, and God is not happy with Moab, or the king of Moab, Balak. And so he warns all of the good Israelites to flee, to run up to the caves where the pigeons dwell, because guess what happens to Moab?
What?
It gets smited and becomes a big pit, a big hole in the ground.
Really?
So I keep going back to that story, Balaam and the ass, and then the parallels, between the first episode of this season and last season. Pigeon, donkey, Leanne being attacked by the cult. So
yeah, there were a lot of similarities. And then also brought up the imagery of the birds in the sky that we saw Leanne drawing at the beginning of 3-1.
Which back then were just little V's.
Right.
And then became elaborate sketches, and now seem to be coming from her mind alone.
Yes, exactly.
I guess birds are her mode of choice. She punished Julian the same way.
Yeah. Not as harshly, though.
They're also a symbol of fertility, prosperity, luck, and transformation. That seems vaguely relevant as well in the opposite direction, but I don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of baby, in terms of prosperity, I don't know if that means Sean's show. Oh, that was a fun little detail too. Sean's instant wine cellar. I
missed that one.
They have boxes in I guess they have like a subscription service that was like Sean's instant. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
Also with Pigeon, I can't remember if I read somebody talking about this on Reddit or if we brought it up while we were watching. I'm not sure, but somebody said that pigeons are obviously inherently not like dangerous birds that would attack.
Right.
No, they're often equated with like being in the same family as doves.
I think they're, exactly, which are two like polar opposites. You think doves of like purity, and then pigeons, it's like, it's rats in the sky.
But I think that so perhaps the reason they chose pigeons, or another reason they maybe chose them, because I think the Balaam tale is relevant. Very relevant.
Oh, for sure.
But also to maybe emphasize that Leanne is manifesting a lot of this.
Or Leanne is like a little pigeon.
I wonder, it's always, no, it's not always something flying, because the bees was...
Another swarm.
Yeah, another swarm. I'm trying to think if swarms are her thing or not.
And interesting how the, I know we're kind of just jumping around now, but interesting how everybody, how everybody ran once the pigeon like they escaped, but the way they ran away, there was something, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. It kind of reminded me of like a video game in a way.
Well, there was something awkward
very
about
awkward.
how they were reacting to the attack. It could just be like the stunt people not being actors.
Perhaps, yeah, perhaps some of the physicality. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there.
Maybe they're a little bit ahead of her, or maybe they know.
Even the woman that was jogging,
Yeah,
almost crawled and sounded like it was animalistic when she was running towards the car after Leanne had knocked her back.
Maybe there's
bear crawling,
going on,
growling in a way, which I found to be.
Well, we've seen hypnosis. Maybe there's some sort of a control, like maybe there's some kind of a trigger action or a trigger to activate protection of. Oh, I'm trying to think like I mean to attack Leanne or to keep an eye on her or something like that way. Maybe they're like programmed to be there at certain times because it's all very well timed, which is I mean filming, I guess, but like it would also have to make sense like within the story.
I can imagine it would be awkward when you're trying to run and hide simultaneously. And you're being plucked at and poked.
It also made
in the
me
middle
think
of
about the end of season 1 in Balloon when the cop drives past and you know they're all hugging around Leanne with the balloon and then he backs up and then we don't see anybody. Right. And we talked about like why was that? Did they disappear? And so I did find myself wondering if that was in some way an answer to what we saw and how that occurred at the end of season 1.
Didn't George also disappear?
No, he got hit by a car.
Yeah, but didn't he also disappear right after that?
He did, I think.
Oh, you're right.
Yep.
The way it was filmed, it seemed like it. Maybe he got up and walked, whatever. But they did show that he was like there and then gone. So I don't know if that's like
he crawled behind a car.
Do they have the ability to allow themselves to be seen or not seen?
Well, what did they say this time around? That only the church can see us? What was that about?
Right.
Maybe talk about that.
It was one of those odd phrasings. Yeah. So we'll get to it.
But does that mean I'm only visible to God and my people? Like, does it mean like only you understand me, or is it more like you can't see me? Like, period. Like, is it like a symbolic thing, or?
I took it as a warning. We can't.
That's what I would have. That's what I thought too in the context of it. But also, like, God sees me as like I'm blessed. Like,
and why? Why can only the church see them? Why would other people? Why would they not?
Oh, I maybe I get it because isn't it? Didn't Leanne explain that? Like you don't understand, like you won't notice who they are, like because they look like anybody, like some right? Yeah. Didn't she say something along those lines?
It says you don't know what to look for.
It could be a reference to that, but couldn't you tell me what to look for?
I guess my point there and what I want to say to, people listening, because I know there's been of course, we're all sort of hotly debating what's real and what isn't, and, what answers are we going to get? And I would encourage people to leave their minds open to the fact that there might be small answers that are dealt out throughout the season that might not seem super ceremonious, but could that be, I don't know that it is or isn't, but could that be an answer to how they disappeared, in season 1? They just go and hide. Or, do they have that ability to vanish in a more supernatural way?
And if they do have that ability to vanish in a more supernatural way, why aren't we doing this more often? Why aren't we trying to cause more trouble where we need to intervene, supposedly?
Yeah, that's true too.
Or like Josephine.
And that
I know she's dead, but she appeared in the car. And I don't know if that's are we just like projecting scaries to influence?
Well, that's the other thing. What are we watching that's meant to be tone? That's meant to be sort of horror tropes of setting tone and mood. What are we watching that is real? That might be and what is in the imagination figment.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really
there was a lot. This was a horror movie episode with homages to Brian De Palma, Hitchcock, the classics.
Yeah, definitely. In addition, I mentioned to Aunt, I think the other day, that it also reminded me of the Netflix movie.
Oh, Bird Box.
Yeah, Bird Box. Yeah,
I love that. Was such a good book. Netflix really did them dirty. Anyone who's not read Bird Box, I highly recommend it.
I think that we do have at least, one answer, which is the people in the cult are technically dead, right? They had died at some point and they were in some way, I think, resurrected or reanimated. We have but maybe not. There's a larger theory that we're going to talk about that I've been tossing around. But I think that's why they look like zombies sometimes in the shots, and they sort of lean and have their head tilted in strange zombie-like ways. And the way they're jumping and banging on the car and, getting their arms slammed in doors, and they still kept going like nothing happened. I mean, I guess you can say adrenaline, but I just feel like that's a pretty solid thing at this point. That
I like that. They're not used to being in these bodies again.
Yeah. Which means Leanne is also dead, or, if we assume that she, that what Uncle George said was true, that, perhaps she died in that. I mean, they didn't say that she was, we don't know how Leanne survived the fire, if she did, but
I don't think she did.
I don't think she did. I think
the only reason I don't think so is because I don't really understand why you would have to or want to fake a grave. Like, who would that be for? And what does that prevent you from, like, what is that really hiding, that she's still alive?
So do you think that she was resurrected like the others? B, did someone else, like another soul, take over a different body? Or what do you think that, like, how did Leanne come the way she is?
Well, if you're going on the assumption that all of them had to do some form of that at one time or another to be involved, I would imagine that, like, most people are undead, if that's what we're going to call it.
Yeah.
If they're involved that way. But then, like, maybe her coming back so young, or her coming back like maybe there's some sort of corruption that way.
Yeah.
And she got too much of whatever the magic is, or what, like maybe she's like too powerful. So I don't know. But like, again, I don't know why you would have to like, if you know that that's going to happen, you're not going to bury a little girl and
exactly.
The headstone is confusing. Is the point, I guess.
Yeah.
This cult, they either are or believe they are servants of God. Some say angels here on this earth to do something important. And if you are dead legally, that would make it easier for you to move around. Remember, Uncle George, we do everything we can to make sure that we're not noticed.
So you're like purely going on like actual real world. That's interesting. Huh. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to do for a lot of people. But
well, I mean, if they're dying, it makes sense to make sure there's a gravestone, and then little Leanne Grayson can move around from home to home without a lot of questions.
So I wonder if the cult saved her, like if Uncle George and I saved her, or if they chose her.
Do you think it's something like, because it seems like everybody's pretty sure this was a mistake. So I don't know if they like didn't know she would be that way. Like, I guess most people just fall in line with it, or if she is specifically special, like, that's a problem.
Yeah. Like you were talking about earlier, I think that they have that ceremony, the vacation ceremony. They wouldn't have that if they didn't need it, if there hadn't been other Leannes that had gone wild or rogue.
Right, but then how often does this happen that you don't know how to get ahead of it, or like you're like still allowing her to like operate, doing whatever it is she's supposed to be doing? Well,
they're not allowing her. She keeps thwarting the people they send after her. Right,
but they did place her in certain places to do similar things that she's doing.
They still
like with the Merinos and things like that. Like, so some things are okay.
And then she fell in love with Dorothy. And then she got kidnapped by the Turners.
But she had been since she was a little girl, technically, if we're going to go off that.
I think she was a little girl.
Right.
The house fire. And then she was taken in by the cult.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was sent to do the cult work. Go to this home, go to that home. And ever since she's decided to stay with the Turners, they've been sending Aunt May, Uncle George, Aunt Josephine. And she keeps saying, no. And then this time the cult. That's what I'm going off of, because otherwise my head would explode.
That's fair. No, that makes the most sense, to be honest with you. It's just interesting, like what or if the lines are, and like why are those people not worth helping, if that's the point.
And she was in the pageant in 2012.
So she would have been like 11.
Yeah. So was she in the pageant after she was already undead, given that the headstone says that she died when she was like 5 or 6?
Right. And then what happened in that length of time?
Right.
Alicia, why'd you have to say that?
Because I've been thinking about it. It's been driving me nuts.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Also, above anything else, does it matter?
Right.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
It
That's
might not.
yeah, it might not. None of that
Not
might
to be nitpicking, but sometimes people just,
matter.
stuff that's just for you to think about. Sometimes things are better thought about than actually explained. So hard.
So I want to maybe officially start at the top by talking about what M. Night has actually said about the story itself and about Leanne. So Liz, I know you read an interview and have a quote or two, and I wanted to use that maybe as our jumping off point.
Yeah, I think I've watched every interview that M. Night has done about Servant that's on YouTube and read every interview that I could find online. This one is from when he was promoting season 3, I believe. He
Okay.
says about Leanne, she wanted this life. She wanted to be in this brownstone. All she's ever wanted is to be this normal girl in this normal family. She's sick of being told what to do by the cult, I assume. The house and her are sort of tied. And as she gets angry and feels certain emotions, the house manifests that. And then he talks about the basement a little bit. I think the basement and the hole in the basement are to draw darker things. Think about when Leanne first discovered the power of manifesting things by drawing them in the journal. She was staring at that hole sitting in the basement. He notes Julian dropping a wine bottle in the hole and talks about how it represents our vices and how they can pull us down to our darkest instincts. So that's what I got.
Interesting. So it does make me wonder often if Servant is really more of a commentary on grief and, toxic family systems and how
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how darkness can really sneak in and corrupt even the most pure.
Right. Which I keep connecting then back to the Bible, because M. Night talks about wanting to tell this biblical story, a battle of good versus evil for a soul through this family. And he'll often reference movies like The Exorcist, where it's, good versus evil, fighting over the soul of this one little girl, but it has worldly connotations. So I think it's both. It's this beautiful mix of both.
Right.
A story of grief and a story of, Old Testament. What is good? What is evil?
And we put out a short where I talked a little bit about the intro. And I think that's another example of the house and Leanne and their interconnectedness.
And that's another drawing from the journal, right?
Oh my God, Liz.
It is.
And I missed that.
I did too till just right now when
Oh
Liz
my
said
God,
it.
holy moly.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. I thought you were with me, you guys. Come on.
Oh, we're with you now.
That was
I'm here.
That's good. So I haven't done it, but if anybody else wants to, we have a video from last season where we went through all of the pictures that Leanne drew and we broke each one of those down. I've not clearly gone back and looked at them again, but if anybody wants to look at them, that video should be there. I'll link it in the description of this episode.
Yeah, so I think that one and then the one that I can't make heads or tails of, those were the two drawings that we hadn't seen manifested yet.
Yeah.
And the other one I believe is going to be the pit, the hole.
Right. And I saw you with a couple big reactions when she was talking about that. What are some of your thoughts?
No, because I don't know, Jericho and then like the walls of Jericho, and we're really not talking about the baby. So maybe the baby is just like a binder for these people.
Yeah.
To remain under her influence and her control. And perhaps maybe this has been mentioned before. It's just, I was trying to think if there doesn't seem to be anything else in the story specifically. There's like people sneaking around in like thatched roofs and stuff like that, but I'd have to take more time with it.
But you have a really good point.
That was interesting.
Point about it being the tie and the town of,
It's like a focal point as opposed to like, I mean, I know, we're worried about the baby. I'm sure they'll talk about the baby. I'm sure whatever, but like, it doesn't seem like it's like the driving thing anymore.
I agree. Since you brought it up, we'll talk about Jericho for a moment and
and then like the illusion of Jericho being the wall of Jericho being the container for this. Yeah, okay.
Wow, I love that. That's really interesting, Anne.
Thank you.
I know everybody, like, we're all still going, what is Jericho? Like, who is he? Is he real? Is he not real? Is it, what is this? Who is he? I was remembering Natalie saying in the first season how the power of our mind is really strong, and how we can almost always convince ourselves of something.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that, and I believe she says it more than once, but I know she says it in the finale balloon when she's talking to the group of women.
Making sure our physical self and our mental self are in step, making sure they're in sync, because as we go through the world, there's so many things that pull at us and want to knock us off of our tracks.
Girl on the stairs who looks quite similar to Natalie, I think, in terms of like her hair and obviously, her skin color too, but I feel like she almost represents what Natalie was saying. And she has the doll, and Dorothy goes and sits with her on the stairs, and she says, "That's a nice dolly." And the girl looks at Dorothy and she says, "It's not a doll, it's Pamela." And Dorothy makes a comment and holds the doll, and when she holds the doll, she has that moment that I don't know if you call it a flashback, but she remembers herself sitting there on the steps herself with Scary Jerry.
Yeah.
I'm distinguishing now. With Scary Jerry, not human Jericho, Scary Jerry. So she's on the stairs with him, and it occurred to me that, and we've had a lot of discussion too in the fandom about the ties to Wizard of Oz and Peter Pan. Yeah, no, that's the point I'm making. Yeah. Like the first thing I thought about was the movie Hook. Right. And that scene, I know it happens in Peter Pan too, but I just really thought about Hook. And I remember
adaptation. Sure.
Yeah. Where they're all sitting there and there's no food on their plate. And Peter Pan begins to encourage them to like imagine, like, what do you want? What do you wish if you could eat anything in the world? And as their imaginations begin to take them away, the food appears and they start eating the food like it's real food, and they fill their selves with, joy and food and whatever. So their minds concocted it. In Wizard of Oz, they talk about, Dorothy's talking about how she wants to go home, and her entire journey is about trying to find her way home. The journey of the other characters, the Cowardly Lion and, the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, is all about finding something that they lost or that they lacked. And at the end, of course, the wizard says, you always had the power to do that. You always were able to go home. You just had to believe that you could, or you just had to imagine it. And just close your eyes and click your heels and you'll be home. And so I just had this big aha moment of Jericho as living, breathing Jericho is a figment of their minds. Leanne has enabled them. So Leanne's powers, I think, possibly, have enabled them to see Scary Jerry as they want to see him, which is they want to see this as the real Jericho. And that's why they have it when she's around, or when she is allowing it, they are able to see Scary Jerry as Jericho and not the doll, because their minds are believing what they want to believe.
Well, and I immediately thought of the block party. Remember, we talked about how none of the news crew reacted to Dorothy holding Jericho. Oh, your new baby. Oh,
you would a little bit, I think. Yeah.
Which is what you would do if someone were holding a doll.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
talk about it. You wouldn't mention it.
Depends.
Like,
that's
in polite society at a block party. But I love this. I love this theory.
So it might not be, A, B, or C. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's D. Maybe it's not a real baby necessarily.
It is interesting that, did they do that last season at all? Did anybody have it as a doll, really?
When they tried to kick Leanne out during camp, remember, they went scrambling
But who saw
it?
Dorothy was sitting there in the kitchen.
See, that's what I mean. So, like, for the entire time, just about, she's more or less seen him as a baby, but then everybody else has these moments where it's not a baby. So I wonder if, like,
there. Now, the exception for that would be Beach Day, when they took him to the beach without her.
Oh, right.
And we're still not sure if what's happening, since we've never actually seen anything outside of the street other than through the phones.
But also, like, are they less aware now that it was ever a doll? Are we still on the doll train at all? Or are we all like, no, this is baby? Are we just willing to believe it because Leanne made it happen, or
I think
whichever?
it's that.
So we're all delusional now,
I think
at
everybody,
least to that degree, on that level. We're all on that level.
but I think maybe they're accepting it more as like, however this baby that is a real
It's
human
fine.
baby got here,
It's fine.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
As
okay.
long as we have it, we're good. Like we're
Yeah.
not gonna ask
At this
anything.
point, that's where they're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And the deal is like that baby being there, that from our perspective at the moment, the deal is if you want the baby, you get Leanne too. Like they
No,
come,
I understand that. I just mean the like reality of what it like. Is it actually a? You know what I mean? Like, is
Yeah.
it anything? Because if that's the case, like, if I could convince you of anything, if we have enough time together, if we
Right.
like live together and like shared similar.
So I wonder if the ending might look something like Leanne being defeated and us actually seeing the baby go from live to doll, and that's the moment, the waking up moment.
Oh, I'm gonna be absolutely furious if it
I'm gonna
doesn't
be
end with
crying.
Dorothy sacrificing Jericho in some
It,
manner.
see,
You won't have
that's
to let Jericho go.
this other language nonsense is getting me because these interviews. What was the one that I can't think of what it was? I'd
But if
rather
it's in
cite it
her mind,
properly.
that's what she's doing. She's letting go of the fantasy
Right.
reality.
But they're saying she's such an excellent mother, and I've not seen any little bit of. I mean, a little. There's like, I mean, I know being protective is a good thing. I know being adamant about certain things is good, but everything seems very self-serving, whether or not you mean it. It doesn't really. I mean, there are many ways to be a great mother. Like, I have the first clue, but like,
I mean, I think she has the capability of being a good mother.
sure.
But
I guess
yeah,
we have to
I
see what
think,
happens, and it seems like odd behavior for like.
yeah, she has to get over her narcissism.
Right. I think you might be onto something, Liz.
This is all Alicia, but I
No, about the sacrificing of the.
oh
I mean,
yeah, no,
if there's some kind of a moment that way, that seems like that
Yeah.
would be
I
appropriate.
mean, that will be the ultimate moment of like her being, I think, a mother too. Is
exactly the
That's in
self.
that way, maybe. Okay, see, that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense then, because it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm no longer going to allow this evil in my home or around me affecting my loved ones just so that I can have what I want.
But yeah,
Yeah.
see,
it would take a lot to get Dorothy there.
that gives me much pause because it seems like everybody else is also in the same boat because the answer is ultimately just to get rid of Leanne, no matter what happens to her.
Right. But well, and that's what I want to talk about in the episode. You know,
Okay.
maybe we could do a rundown.
So basically, the episode, I'll do like a quick recap so we can continue moving with our analysis. But basically, it opens with Leanne preparing the house for Dorothy's return. She's humming. I thought she seemed very comfortable.
I read my notes. Leanne is very much at home in this home.
Yes. And I feel like she's really probably enjoyed being the woman of the house.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, what she was humming, it sounded like these are a few of my favorite things.
Oh, I thought that too, yeah.
I was trying to pinpoint it.
It was like enough of it that I got that idea, but then I wasn't totally sure.
And she's making sorry, go on, Alicia.
Cake. Yes, no, that's great. So she's making a cake.
And the green.
What cake is green and why?
Well, I thought about the king cake because that would involve green icing because it happens around March, but who knows?
Yeah.
Well, they're usually like rainbow or like, but yeah, I know what you mean, like colorful with bright.
Yeah. Green is the color of envy.
And then the other one they usually do is purple.
Right, green and purple. Yep. But I
royalty.
Keep biblical stuff. You know, I'm stuck in Old Testament world with.
No, I think you are. I'm glad you're there because I think it's a huge.
We're glad you're stuck in Old Testament world.
And green is the color of the fourth horseman of the apocalypse.
And which one is that?
What?
Green. Fourth horseman, death.
Oh, death. Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And because giant pit.
Wow.
Man's powers. The cult saying, what happens if someone goes off and we don't bring them back?
Yeah.
The devil comes. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Sorry. Go on.
That's great. That's really interesting. Yeah. So she's doing that. Julian called. I think I just find it interesting that she's so optimistic that Dorothy is going to just be
fine.
Crazy to me.
Good to see you. Thanks for not catching me.
Thanks for the cake and the flowers.
We're all good. We're good.
All good here. So Julian calls, and even their interaction just felt very like
solid couple.
Yeah. Domestic, normal. Yeah. The way that you would, yeah.
You got the flowers. Yeah. They're in the trunk. When are you coming home?
And so she goes for the flowers, and this takes us outside where things start to go crazy. When she goes to walk back in, the door's open. So obviously she's suspicious. Although I do find it interesting that like if somebody's in there to do something, why wouldn't they shut the effing door?
Shut the door. It's a cult. It's the cult.
Like sometimes they're so good at being sneaky, and other times like, what?
Yeah.
So I think that's why sometimes I go back and forth between wondering if something is in her head versus something being.
It's either that or it's the fallibility of people. Just because I'm all under somebody's guidance and power and have my own influence and whatever doesn't really mean I know what I'm doing, especially if I'm coming to a church off of some sort of rough life.
True.
You're not necessarily going to like follow out like okay, I'll do what you say, but it might not go as because I'll get nervous or sad or like whatever it is that
different levels of.
I know they're not like young kids, but they're kids, or they seem to be kids.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. I mean,
so somebody's waiting for her. They use a lot of reflections as distracts or, as sort of suspense thriller moments, which is fun. They run around.
He whacks them with the vase with the flowers.
Right.
And then runs back out. Yeah, she runs back out and goes right to the car.
I just like rewatch this again too. I'm just
because she realizes she's being closed in on.
Right.
By the cult at both ends of the street.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So she's sitting in the car and
the
two women approach and we have that great moment where it leans in. I know it's meant to be suspenseful in that moment, but I did feel like the way that she was looking in the car was very purposeful and meant to intimidate Leanne. Like it was meant to kind of, So, was that a cult member or was that just coincidental in the moment? Do you think, Ant?
I think it's been happening this way the entire time, so it's both until we find out if maybe she pops up again. It's the same thing with the hot dogs. This silly man, he keeps doing.
Oh, and speaking of silly man, I also felt like people were almost supposed to look like other people, right? Like the jogger from the back looked like Isabel. I felt like the woman putting on her lipstick looked like Courtney, but with blonde hair.
You think that's just for us? You think that's just a special little?
I'm wondering. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's going to be my motto for this season. Is this
jogger? The jogger one. That was totally Isabel.
Are they messing with her or?
People are like all over, or is it like
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
With the two women though, and that look especially, and then what they say. So they say, you can't hear much of what they're saying, but then at the end, the old saying, pour yourself a drink, put on some lipstick, and pull yourself together. It's an Elizabeth Taylor quote, which just means like never let them see you cry or sweat. But the blonde, again, back to Old Testament, reminded me of vanity and, vapidness. And again, another form of the devil's tricks of corruption. But I also thought about what are we meant to think about or feel in this moment? And I thought it was a toss-up between poor Leanne, like no one can see her. She's so alone. But then also, this gives her a moment to gather her thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's always a question because the dog like jumps on the car and barks. And so I think, neither of the people seemingly see Leanne inside the car.
Right. So tinted windows.
Yeah.
There's a neat trick.
Man. M. Night and all of the double stuff. Like, is it this or is it that? Oh my gosh, I swear.
Go on.
And she's decides everything's okay, or she has to get out of the car to get the eventually.
No, she spies the hot dog vendor and thinks maybe, but then gets the pen.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Thank you. Yes.
And the hot dog vendor is saying, he's on his earpiece saying, I'm here where you told me to be. I'm just standing here. Hurry up.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that either. You did good getting some of those.
Thank you. Closed captioning.
So, if these cult members are undead, then the efforts that she makes to try and, I guess, kill them are really just efforts to incapacitate them so she can get away, because
exactly,
they can't really die.
But have that been confirmed?
I don't know.
No, it has not.
Because if it's a process, I can't imagine going through the process to get everybody back. But I guess if you need people, right?
That happens. The jogger returns.
And I thought that was the neat trick with the jogger. And she knows exactly where to go for the oil. So it's a coordinated effort. And then the whoosh, on her face, and it blinds her and it hurts and it burns her face. And then she drops the key fob
and backs into the vehicle again and tries to turn it on, and she can't go anywhere.
I wrote, Leanne cannot drive.
So she starts honking and it clears the street. So after that happens,
they bring out the smoke.
And there was lots of filter on it. Like at first I thought like they were going back and forth with sort of interesting filters, but the more I watched, the more I thought, well, that probably is just the smoke. But
yeah. Did you like that window stuff? That was really cool. When they pushed through the window, I love that.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That was so good.
A few times.
They did that in Smile too, and that really impressed me. I don't know why. It was just like a little like weird glass effect, but I was like, oh, that was cool.
It confused me because that's why I was like, wait, switching filters, and then I realized, oh no, that's a window. Like they're transitioning through the window. We get the car that arrives. She sees the kids playing, and she thinks maybe coast is clear. And then we get the car that arrives with the giant tall man that gets out and the twins, which I'm so confused about that moment.
It could be image. People think twins are creepy. We'll see what happens later, I guess. Because they made a reference to it later. Wasn't there a drawing of them somewhere?
I don't know. Was there?
Why do I think I saw that? I'd have to double check what I'm talking about. I thought there was like another little.
But in the trailer, I thought surely this is the Halloween episode because they're the girls from The Shining.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the same thing.
Maybe it's like, well, they don't talk about anything like that. I don't know. Sometimes there's like, you need a certain set of people, like you need twins, and then you need like, I don't know if it's like one of those things. Because there was no reference to it before.
Yeah.
Like, why would they bring two little girls to a...
I know.
They weren't that little. Were they little, really?
No, they weren't.
They might have been like teens.
Yeah.
But what was their symbol? Like, why were they there? Symbolically speaking. And then he gets out and they just stand there and watch.
Yeah.
So people theorize that he's the man that Roscoe was referencing, the man with the hook.
I feel like they'd make a bigger deal about that.
I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, anything is possible.
And if he has a hook for a hand, wouldn't we have seen it?
Right.
Well, if it's a misinterpretation, I mean, you could hold it like Candyman or something like that.
Maybe he's an important member because maybe the teens are like acolytes or wives. Who knows?
And what happened to like we were afraid of Josephine? She was such a big deal, and then she was dispatched. And then it's like, oh, he's coming. But now it just seems like everybody's coming. So I don't know if that is.
Because I do remember I was looking back in one of my rewatchings and it says, you need to return to him. You need to come back to him.
Well, that could be God. Yeah.
Is that God or is that him? Is that this guy?
Right.
It could be the same thing, actually. But I mean, like, it just seems strange that they would. I guess it's like different film tricks to have like a big and then do a different.
I think we just don't know who him is. Yeah.
I don't think we have enough information, really. No.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll learn.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see a man with a hook.
So the sigil that he drew on the window.
The same as the one in the tent?
So that was the same as one in the tent, right? That's what I was
I think so. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then they like put a little,
I need to look and see if it's the same that George did.
I think it is.
Or the door, I think is what he did. Yeah, the door.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing that George did.
Pretty sure it is.
So what do you think that means? Is it
that's when the car started to fill with smoke, yeah. So it must be some kind of a ward or something.
Is it part of the ritual?
Yeah, because it's not in the ritual video.
It kind of seems like it was like an attempt to hurt her.
Right.
Like somebody's anointed with oil at an exorcism or something like that. But it wasn't like an exorcism reaction. It was more like, oh, the car is full of smoke now.
It was a triangle with two little things.
And then a dot in the middle on the corner. Yeah.
And that's when he's saying, we don't want to hurt you.
Right.
But you know what you have to do. You have to come back.
come back. It'll just be better for all of them.
And I went back to Tiger too to look at what the attacker put on her forehead. Not the same sigil.
Different.
No?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, I looked.
Hmm.
I thought it would be, but no.
Well, then perhaps it's just meant to be like maybe there are different sigils for different things that they want to accomplish.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like writing in the book.
Well, and that's what I was wondering about the smoke and the oil. It's not just oil, it's not just smoke. They're like, they serve mystical purposes. They can make you pass out, hallucinate.
Sure, like magic.
Yeah, magic.
And I mean, I feel like most of them don't have the powers, but maybe some of them do, right? Like the ones that are, Josephine does, Leanne does, like we were mentioning at the beginning, George does. But like, if you watch too, a lot of these guys they're just trying to outsmart her and outwit her. They're not able to
like get ahead of it, really.
Right. Yeah, or conjure things up like Leanne seems to be able to do.
I imagine it's they've got the hierarchy of like the aunts and the uncles are the higher ups.
If you're lesser, not doing as big of miracles.
Right. If you're a cousin, you're a heavy.
Things like that, sure. No, it makes perfect sense with what we have to go on.
So she realizes in that moment when he's drawing the sigil on there, she realizes I'm more powerful than these people. Like they can't hurt me because I have power. And she realizes in that moment, like, I don't need to be scared because I can conquer all of them.
It's interesting how she keeps learning that.
I know. Yeah, that's a good point.
No, maybe that's just the progression of it. Like I can't, like the kids were creepy and now I'm dealing with them as, my entourage, so to speak. So maybe she's going to like indoctrinate these people as well in some way.
So what do you make of the cult of Leanne and what that's about and how she feels about that and them at this point? I mean, I know
they're a well-oiled unit now.
For sure.
The portrait of Leanne that we see blowing in the wind, it's a version of a biblical painting, The Woman and the Dragon. The woman represents not the Virgin Mary, but like God's plan, God's perfect order. And the dragon represents not the devil, but chaos. And this dragon is after this woman's baby, and the woman falls to earth, and the dragon spits out a bunch of water, and the earth opens up and takes in the water to save the woman and the baby. And it's a whole biblical story. But Leanne is being painted as this perfect image of God's plan. Some might say that's heresy, Balak and his kingdom of Moab.
Right.
That ended up in a pit.
Yeah. So it's almost like false idols. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Because they're now like bowing down to her. They're her army, right? They're her cult.
And she almost seemed resentful, or I don't know, there was something about the way she shut the curtain at the end, because she looks out at night once she's settled and we see the dreadlock girl out there and she raises her hands up, and the way Leanne shuts the curtain is almost like she's annoyed by it or angry with her, or
I wrote worthless youths.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Worthless youths.
Yeah, it's interesting when Leanne is when she goes, we're backtracking a lot, but when she goes back in the house after, when she sees the door open ajar and she's kind of, looking around for who might be in there, we hear the sirens coming to round up the youths.
Yeah.
So that's a neat bit. But yeah, and then when they arrive after the attack, the girl says that will never happen again. And Leanne's like, damn right it won't. We have to do better, right? What does she say? We have to be smarter.
Yeah, yeah. Which she's not wrong about that. I mean, if she's wanting to win here.
You too, Leanne.
So she goes in, they leave. Somehow the sun comes out because Leanne's no longer angry.
That's right. When she's in the car at first, banging the steering wheel and screaming, there's a very deliberate shot of the first bird.
Yeah. Yep.
She's calling them.
Yeah. And the clouds, and then it rains, and she goes inside. When she's doing that, it's raining. But then when they all get home and Dorothy's entrance, y'all.
Oh my God. Dorothy in her glasses and her scarf.
Everything about just the I loved how he shot it from the back.
Yeah.
You know, we saw her hair all perfect and
that
you know,
beautiful red hair cascading back.
the glasses, moving of the glasses. It was all so
Dorothy is here, y'all.
yes.
Dorothy has returned.
Yeah.
I find
Mostly.
that Sean and Julian have allowed Leanne to stay.
Okay, so
I guess it's got to stay because somebody's got to take care of, you know, they figure she'll take care of Jericho. But
I think they still don't think they have a choice. But yeah, you're right.
oh, like you feel like they are aware of the fact that the only way to keep Jericho is to have Leanne there.
That's the only thing that makes sense. Everybody's a grown adult. I don't know why you wouldn't just call like CPS or like, I mean, I know she's 18 or whatever now, but there are so many options to get rid of a problem.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember how Sean spoke to her when she's like, can I go in there and see if she needs anything? And Sean's like, no.
No.
Face. From all of us. Yeah.
Right.
Like, don't want to.
He's covering. Yeah.
No, he seems visibly afraid of her.
Of Leanne or Dorothy?
Yeah.
Of Leanne. Well,
yeah, for sure.
Dorothy, their whole marriage, but Leanne, yeah. In this moment.
Yeah.
I think they're both like, I don't want to be the next one down the.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a good point.
So yeah.
The other thing I thought worth noting too is just I think one of you guys mentioned all of the fire and, you know, it did drop images of Hell's Kitchen and Gordon Ramsay.
Okay. So when I first saw Sean's show, I wrote, we're in hell. It was so over the top. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was like Hell's Kitchen on steroids, and that's saying a lot.
And
I wonder
the audience participation. I wrote watching the Christians thrown to the lions in the Coliseum. Audience members, it looks like they're in a church, right? Like stained glass behind them.
Yeah,
and they're booing and whooping it up and having fun, degrading these poor people. I just wrote, "We're in hell."
Yeah,
and Julian, way back on the sauce. Leanne's like, in season 3, you can have a drink. I won't let you fall. It's falling hard. So yeah, I was thinking that Leanne is controlling both Sean and Julian with these empty vices, like M. Night talked about. Fame, alcohol, sex.
And everybody's corrupt in a different fun way.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Not that playing for camera is corrupt, but you don't need to be that way.
Right, exactly.
No.
The fame is drawing you if the money is drawing you.
And if that's your brand, like, what do you're feeding people, but you're going to be like, fuck you, because my egg roll is weird? Or, I mean, I get it. Right. It's entertaining, but like.
He's supposed to be like
that's not
fine chef, and he's talking about shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, those Gordon Ramsay shows, whatever, they're considered family friendly. They're on networks typically, right?
Yeah.
And on what network are you cursing? I don't know. It just all felt very,
And even he really started to pull back on it after a while. His Gordon Ramsay, you know, his
yeah.
And if you watched him on any of his other shows, he was actually very.
But yeah, fame corrupts.
Yeah. I know I've talked a lot about like Sean always wearing black and feeling like he was, you know, if we were battling for souls, that he probably or might be on the darker side. And then we saw him come around, I feel like a little bit, but this definitely seemed like a big backslide.
Yeah. He just started going back to church in season 3.
Yeah.
But Leanne did not like that.
Right.
And she told Sean in season 3, you're going to be famous. I know it. And then she very Godfather-like said, take the job, Sean.
Yeah.
You'll always be fine, or whatever it is. That was, yeah.
Yeah. And I just wrote, this is the
You're a star.
second time Sean has let Dorothy down and left her when she needed him.
Yeah. True. Another random thing was, you know, just that we're always making Dorothy her favorite something. She never actually eats.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
The favorite cake, the favorite breakfast, the favorite, you know, but she never ever eats.
That's right.
It's interesting how we're always doting over whatever Dorothy's favorite is. I don't know. Maybe that's just meant to be something that's kind of like funny. It's like a funny repetitive thing, and there's not anything more than that to it. But
it's just interesting.
Yeah. I do wonder, I read the log line for the next episode, and it talks about Dorothy being scared of Leanne.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Leanne,
I'm interested to see how, when we do see Leanne and Dorothy interact, how that's going to look and go.
Mm-hmm.
I think this season Dorothy's going to be very clear-eyed, and it's just going to get more and more clear.
We'll have to get there somehow.
So it was an odd episode to start the season. It's
sure.
Kind of an odd episode to begin the season.
Very fast.
Very fast. I did not like it. It was, it was
very good.
Certainly good, very good. Yeah, and suspenseful, and it was fun to watch. But yeah, I don't know that it was how I thought that they would start the season.
A little more information. We got a lot of information, just not quite how we're used to it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I think.
I was so ready to see whether or not Leanne resuscitated Dorothy. If Dorothy had died, or
yeah.
And maybe we'll learn later.
Well, and
maybe
then
we will.
Also thinking about like who is dead is are the Turners and Sean, or are the Turners and Julian, right? Well, yeah, right. That's what it would be. She took Sean's last name. So are the Turners and Julian, have they been dead this whole time? Have they died as we've watched it, except for Sean? Julian died. Right. Dorothy died.
That's what I was waiting for.
Maybe Sean hasn't died, or maybe Sean was already dead.
Well, maybe when he couldn't taste or smell or feel.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
So I think that's still on the table, in my opinion. All of them being dead. I know a lot of people think that's kind of a big swing, maybe a little obvious, or a little bit
like the purgatory thing.
Yeah. Oh, not necessarily purgatory, but maybe something like that.
What if, because all she knows is that religion, supposedly, or like some of it or most of it. So what if her in turn taking the Turners on, and I don't know that she caused everybody to have whatever happened to them, but if they're all dead and then alive again, maybe they're like being endeared to her in the way that the cult is endeared to whoever him is. Maybe she's making her own little novel of inadvertent. She might not even know she's doing that, so she's already kind of won. Maybe
that's an interesting point too. I also just wanted to remind us, I guess, too, of the Merinos, and I still have a lot of feelings about them and who they are, or how they're tied to Leanne, or how they're tied to the Turners and Julian. I still think there's a lot of coincidences there that could be clues, and even here with the woman being in the bed and unable to move.
That's what I thought of last season.
Dorothy
we're going to get a repeat.
We're just out here crippling everybody.
Like, is this a thing? Is this sort of framework family? Like, is this repeated? Is she repeating it? Or is this, because there's so many similarities. And also during my rewatch, I noticed how many times Sean and George are compared to each other.
How?
Like, we've got the moment when they're watching the thing on the news at the Merinos, and there's the physicality of the fist clenching, and they show you Uncle George doing it, and they show you Sean doing it. They do another one in Rain when Leanne, Uncle George says sometimes people need to be led with a firm hand, something like that. And Dorothy says to George, that's exactly what Sean says.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I just started picking up on, and there's a third one that I can't think of right now that I noticed when I was rewatching, but
we'll get to it for the next one.
I haven't gotten all the way through, but
so
sort of moments where we keep tying George and Sean together, and got the parallels between Julian and the redheaded Merino boy, and then the ties between Dorothy and the woman confined to her bed. So there's just a lot of really interesting like parallels that I see are meant to mean something.
Do you have any theories about George and Uncle George and Sean? Has anything?
My theory is that Sean is whatever we don't know about Sean is the key to a lot of this. I really think that might be something. So perhaps Sean has a history that he's not remembering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, perhaps he was part of the cult. Perhaps they all were. I don't know. But I do think that Sean, we don't know very much about Sean.
We never hear
Right.
anything about his family.
Yeah. And I think that perhaps he's the key to something. I'm just not sure what.
That would be really cool.
I have that feeling too.
Mhm.
Just because we don't really know. I mean, we really don't know too much about it.
We don't much about him. He's very
It
much
seems like the
black
least.
sheep of the group.
Yeah. He was homeless at a time. That's about it.
He was
Yeah,
hungry.
exactly. That's another good one, Aunt. Yeah.
And he came up through, I mean, I guess you went to culinary school. You don't have to necessarily, but I guess like to get professional in that regard, he must have gone through some sort of.
Didn't we find out that
I think they did talk about
Dorothy had to
that.
go to culinary school?
Oh, yeah, you might be right. Okay, I'd have to go back and look.
Most chefs, they're kind of rough and tumble, and
Oh no, for sure. You do anything you can.
And he really connected with the homeless youth last season.
well, right. He says, I know what it's like to be hungry.
Yeah.
Right.
That could mean anything too, but well, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that Sean might be one of them. Whether
That's kind of the feeling I'm getting too.
that's what I think. That like if you ask me like what do I think, that's what I think.
I don't know
think
how you forget that, but I
but
guess
I
you
don't know.
forget
Yeah,
that.
but I don't think he knows it for
Yeah.
some reason,
He's
or
a-
he does, and he's
he's
just
a-
they really kept a good
Poker
facade
face.
on it. Maybe they didn't tell.
But then I feel like he would have a better handle on what's happening.
Yeah, and we would have like
Like-
known by now that he
Seems
had an idea of what was going on.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So it might just be that he doesn't remember.
Yeah, I think it's something he isn't aware of. But
Yeah.
that would be my guess based on a lot of the clues that we've seen. You know, I go back to season 1 with the alarm. He can't get out, but Dorothy puts the same code in and it disarms it. Now again, that could be Leanne's powers, right?
Mhm.
It might not be meant anything more than that.
Yeah.
You know, losing his sense of taste. I don't know. There's just a lot of things said to him and things that happen to him specifically that don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then even with the fact that like we're always talking about like Dorothy waking up or not waking up, but we don't ever see Sean sleeping either. Like we see everybody
Right.
else sleeping, but we never see
Mhm.
Sean. He's always awake or
Yeah.
you know, and so that might just be another like clue that we haven't totally noticed necessarily, or people haven't totally noticed that like, hey, why, you know, we didn't notice that before. You guys have anything else that you
I don't
wanna-
think so for this week, really.
Yeah, it was definitely a very quick episode. It seemed real fast.
We covered a lot of ground though.
I agree.
Or we, uncovered some things we need to talk about later. That's always good too. I'll
Yeah.
make a list over here.
Liz, do you have anything else?
I think that's it.
Right.
I'm just glad that we're back in it.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for this week. So we're going to get back to rewatching and overanalyzing so that we're prepared for another deep dive
Good
in
stuff.
the next episode, which do you guys know what the next title is?
Itch.
Itch. Ooh.
Mhm.
And the glorious return of Courtney.
I
With a
think
K.
I think. Yes.
Okay.
Courtney. Okay. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what unfolds next.
Yeah,
And
it should be good.
yeah. All right, everybody. Well, like I said, if you haven't subscribed and you want to keep up with everything servant related that we put out, please hit the subscribe button and make sure the notifications are on. We're also on Twitter at Servant Decoded, as well as TikTok, same thing at Servant Decoded. And we'll also be releasing on our podcast platforms that we put this on as well. So
Mhm.
thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
And please feel free to comment and tell us your thoughts and your predictions. And if you have any videos or things that you're wanting us to discuss or questions you want us to address in our next podcast, or even like in a short, maybe if you have something you want to, see us do in a short, or question you want us to answer or theorize about, please just leave all that in the comments below. And we are super excited to be back, and we will see you guys next time.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.